Joining me today is an award-winning author, a regular contributor to the New York Times. He has written for Parade, Men's Journal, Rolling Stone, The Huffington Post, and Condé Nast Traveler, just to name a few. And if you've been dying to go to Italy, all you have to do is pick up 2 of his 3 books. Andrew Cotto, welcome to the middle.
Thank you for having me. Actually, I'm honored.
Of course. Okay, so first tell me about Cucina Romana without giving too much away.
Okay. I can't give too much away because I actually finally did one of those really great surprise endings. So I'm going to be careful here not to do.
No, I'm not done. So I love it so far, though.
I don't want to spoil myself here. So Cucina Romana is a sequel to a novel called Cucina Tipica. Cucina Tipica is about an American who he's a disheartened American. He lost his job, he's sort of depressed, and he goes to Italy on holiday to sort of recover. And he gets there and he decides he can never leave. Right? Clearly, I'll play spoiler here. He gets to stay because there wouldn't be a sequel if he didn't find it. So, and Cucina Romana picks up this character's adventures in Italy. I call them the Italian Adventure series, or the publisher called them that. Though I always had to make the distinction that they're not the Da Vinci Code. They're not chasing each other around, and the Pope's not in danger. But the adventure is really involving this character trying to find some permanence there, either through heritage or his own endeavors. And they're really doing all these things between the meals. They're very much food and wine focused novels.
Yes, and we're going to get to the food in a second, but I studied in Florence and this book immediately brought me back. So for people who don't know, tell me about your Italy connection and your love affair with the country, because it's immediately apparent when you're reading this.
Yeah, I love this question. I fell in love with Italy very much like my character did. And this is not like sort of thinly veiled fiction. The character's experiences are wholly unique, except for the fact that I went to Italy for the first time and fell in love within 2 days and vowed to live there. Not permanently, and I couldn't leave America. My family's here, but I thought I have to spend more time than just this 2-week stay I'm having there. So this is in my late 20s, I guess. And 2 years later, I was living there. I quit my job, changed my career from sales and account management in the entertainment industry into pursuing that life of a teacher and a writer. And really, Italy is what got me to do that. Because that being able to move there temporarily, at least. In the hills south of Florence allowed me to pivot. So I was there for a year, fully immersed in the Italian experience. And then I'd returned frequently for vacations, and I taught in the summer of 2014 at John Cabot University in Rome. So at that point, I was like, okay, I can start writing books about Italy now. I feel like I had enough command.
It's so amazing. I love that you did that. And it's such an inspiration for people who have those desires to live abroad or to become an expat, if you will, but then keep it immersed in your life. So
yeah.
You also write about food in such a mouth-watering way. So talk to me about your relationship to cooking and how that also overflows into your novels.
Sure. I think I might be the world's only food fiction writer. I'm just so, enamored with it. I mean, some people, I like to feed people. Right? So I love to cook. Food's been a huge part of my life. I'm Italian American. I grew up every Sunday at my grandmother's. My mother was a fabulous cook. Not just Italian cuisine. She was very much into Julia Child on TV and Jacques Pepin. She was a gourmand, and she taught me how to cook growing up. And I cooked my way through college in a restaurant. I cooked frequently ever since. I was a dinner party guy, and all the restaurants of New York City were, where I spent my, my expendable income. And when I started writing books, I just, realized I like to start feeding my characters. I just think it's an important part of a narrative. It can be, for characterization and for sensory details to include food. So I do so with great detail, and I tend to do so in a way that's not, I'm not into the over the top thing where every single ingredient is being referenced. I'm more about the experience of eating it, who you're with, where you are, what you're having, but I'm not describing every single moment of what it takes slice and oh, it's so unctuous and I don't do that. I just try to make it seem like the person who's reading it could experience it themselves, right, in real time. So I love it as a device. I think it adds a lot of fun to the books. It also helps with characterization, what people eat and where they eat and who they decide to eat with says something about the characters. So I use it in unique ways, and I also do so a lot in my journalism. I write a ton of food journalism for La Cucina Italiana and Rachel Ray's magazines and others as well. I just adore it.
And it also gives the readers an idea of what they're eating next, what they're cooking next, because it does stay with you. The descriptions are just so vivid in the best way. And don't you do some cooking shows too?
Yeah, I've done plenty of the demonstrations. So
Yeah.
I've been a guest on some cooking shows. Kara's Cucina, who's a Emmy award winning, Emmy nominated YouTube food persona. I've been on her show 3 times. Once because she read Cucina Tipica and was so inspired by one of the meals that she made it on her show, and then invited me on to make it with her. We're pals. I did demonstrations during the lockdown. I had a Saturday night reading series. So I'd read passages I call the aperitivo hour. I'd make a Negroni or a spritz or what have you, and read on Facebook and Instagram passages from the books that involve food, and then I'd make one of the things that I read about. So it'd be lamb chops or pasta carbonara or whatever it was. So I do a demonstration like that, and it's great. I've been on plenty of other shows too, where I do this. And then my last book party, Cucina Romana, I had Rocco the Spirito come over and demonstrate one of the meals. So it was really fun.
So are you a big runner? Like, how do you stay in shape with all of this delicious food surrounding you constantly?
Well, I do exercise regularly. I do so more, I think, because, for my mental health and more of my physical health. But I think it's about, knowing how to eat. I mean, I'm I can't say I'm a less is more person when it comes to eating, but I eat, normal portions, healthy food. I don't take sugar. I don't take, excessive carbs. I think if you practice sort of what generally considered a Mediterranean style eating diet, you can still remain fit and still enjoy your food. And I'm not into like the family size platter. I don't need a pound of pasta.
Right.
I need a quarter pound of pasta and then something on the side. And so it's so easy to manage, you know, and you see the healthiest people in the world love food too. Italians, for example, right? They're fabulous, right?
I was just gonna say, I'll never forget being in Italy and my Italian teacher just sitting there and telling us, she's like, listen, like the food is amazing, but you guys in America eat at the wrong time, first of all. Like we eat our
Mhm.
big meal in the middle of the day, you eat all your carbs then, and then we don't load our stuff with preservatives. We're going to the store every day, we're cooking with these fresh ingredients and having these delicious meals, but it's not gonna weigh you down the way that, like, yes, the family style, like I'm not going to name restaurant names, but
Yeah, we don't want to get any trolled by one of the chains. But yeah, I think that the point's really well taken. Also, is that when you're requiring fresh ingredients, they don't need to be preserved, right? I mean, I like having an empty cupboard except for dry goods. And when you make them yourself and you eat them in proper portions, you can be really, really healthy and still enjoy your food.
absolutely. Okay, so we have to talk about this new show that you are hosting. It sounds a lot like mine. It's called Bookish Meet the Author. So tell me all about it.
Well, first of all, it's not quite as polished as yours, thanks to my participation. I was interviewed by Italy USA Magazine, and the woman who interviewed me also works for this a woman named Clarissa Burt, who is a household name in Italy, even though she's American. She went there to model at age 19, and she never came back. She was there for like 30 years, right? All my Italian friends are like, "Oh my God, Clarissa Burt!" She has returned to the States and began this platform, a media platform. She's quite an entrepreneur and very savvy, called In the Limelight Media. She has a magazine and a podcast. I don't know how long her days are, but she does like a million different things with media. She interviewed me for her show because the woman at the magazine I just referenced also works for Clarissa. She interviewed me. After the interview, she said, "Hey, this is good. You're kind of good at this, sort of bantering thing. I host events at the 92nd Street Y. I've done some other hosting roles, so I like it. I like to engage with people. So she said, "You're good at this. I have a show about books. I need a host." For the first season at least. So she asked me to do it and I did it. And it was really fun. I did it from right here most of the time or in my kitchen. And I have to admit, the production value on my side, is not, up to par with what I'm seeing elsewhere. But the conversations are great. And I had Stephanie Danler, who's a best-selling author of Sweet Bitter and Stray, and Laura Morelli, who does historical fiction out of Italy. The Painted Lady is one of her most famous book. She's a wonderful. The Night Portrait, also, she's amazing. I had Carlos Dews, who's a Pushcart nominated author of a book called Hush. And there was lots of food stuff too, of course. I can't get away from the food, right? I had
Of
cookbook
course.
authors, Michelle DiPietro, who has a book called Superfied, where she takes all these, like, classic plate meals and transitions them into soups. It was amazing. She's so brilliant. I had these three cousins from Cleveland, the Cugine and Cucina, who have a cookbook they made called "Don't Cut the Basil" they made during the lockdown. So it was really, really fun just to talk to people about books and their processes, and to make new friends. I mean, and the lockdown's been hell, right? And I wouldn't wish it to happen if I
But
had my choice.
some good has come out of it. I feel the same about my series. I would never have had the time to sit down and do it and start it.
I know, and it's so amazing that, like, that we couldn't find the time before. I think once we were sort of had to do something, we rallied.
Right.
I made so many friends. Right?
Yeah,
We would not be talking right now. Right?
exactly. I know. I love it. So where can we watch the series?
It is on Binge Network, which is associated with In the Lime. We're In the Limelight puts all their programs. They have a whole array of programs, business shows. There's a PhD at a Miami University of Ohio called Mary Kovacs, who's a management show, and all this other really cool, unique content. And it's on the Binge Network, and it's all available on demand too through Roku and Amazon Fire and Apple TV, etc. All those on demand things, which I don't really know what that is, but all on demand things. I've never done, like, turn on Stanley Tucci, nothing happens. I don't know.
The talk to the remote, yes. What about new novels? Do you have anything in the works that we could look forward to?
Yeah, and again, another thing with the lot that I've written my brains out here. I've just been writing and writing and writing, sort of, to keep myself, occupied and having time to do so. So I actually wrote Cucina Romana during the lockdown. The first 6 months I sat down. And it takes 2 years to write a novel, at least for like a slow poke like me. I wrote it in 6 months. Then I was done. I was like, what am I going to do now? And I had this book in my head that I kept avoiding writing. It's about a friend. It was a memoir. About my oldest and dearest friend who passed away. I wanted to write a memoir about friendship, about male friendship, and how devastating his loss was to me. And I just couldn't do it in memoir form, having to oblige to all the facts of our lives together and include his wife and his kids. That part was particularly painful for me. I love them. I couldn't bring them into the pain. So I fictionalized it, and added a little, a sort of a fun aspect to it. It's called Pasta Mike. Which
Okay.
was the nickname that the character, the character is Andy. That's my nickname. People call him as a kid, and he's Mike. And so we're really true to life as friends. But that I made that Andy's grandmother called Mike Pasta Mike. So it's called Pasta Mike. It comes out in January.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's a pretty heavy exploration of the power of friendship, particularly amongst males who don't necessarily recognize this or even talk about when they're suffering. So I'm hoping it will generate a conversation about the importance of people, males in particular, talking about their anguish.
Oh, I love that. That's important. Well, we'll look forward to that and all of your work. What is your Instagram handle so I could put it up on the screen?
Oh, sure. I'm at Andrew Cotto for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Instagram being my favorite. I love all my food pictures and
Yeah, me too.
everything. So
Awesome. Well, it was so nice to meet you, and I'm sure we'll be speaking again very soon.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks so much for having me.